Woman saw this Dunkin Donuts guy at 7:30 a.m., then discovers disturbing truth. For months, Joanna Griffiths sipped her morning iced coffee, oblivious to the secret hidden behind the smile of the Dunkin Donuts guy. But when she saw him later that day, in an unexpected place, she realized his life was far from what it seemed. Joanna Griffiths wasn't the kind of woman to dwell on the little things. She had her routine down to a science. Wake up at 6 a.m. sharp, a quick morning jog through the quiet streets of Belmont, New Hampshire, and then straight to Dunkin' Donuts for her daily iced coffee. The drink was almost ritualistic, a comforting constant in her otherwise chaotic life. Every morning, without fail, she'd push open the glass doors of Dunkin' at exactly 7:30 a.m., greeted by the familiar hum of brewing coffee, the faint smell of toasted bagels, and of course him, Kyle Bigler. He wasn't just another barista behind the counter. There was something about him. Maybe it was the shock of fiery red hair, or the intricate tattoos that curled up his arms like forgotten stories. Or perhaps it was his uncanny ability to remember everyone's order by heart. Joanna admired that about him. Medium iced coffee. Extra caramel, right? He'd say with an easy grin, sliding the drink across the counter before she even uttered a word. She never understood how he did it. But there was a warmth in his voice, a kindness that felt rare. At first, Joanna thought little of him beyond the brief exchanges. But there was an energy to him, something beyond the cheerful facade, a quiet persistence hidden behind his bright smile. And then there was the first moment she noticed something odd, a glance, a fleeting second, but it planted a seed of curiosity she couldn't quite shake. Kyle Bigler was a mystery wrapped in a smile. He stood behind the Dunkin' counter like he belonged there, moving with an effortless rhythm. Pour, stir, smile, repeat. Despite the tattoos, despite the tiredness lingering in the corners of his eyes, he exuded a sense of unwavering optimism. His coworkers often joked that Kyle had a memory like a steel trap. Whether it was Joanna's daily caramel fix or Mr. Davidson's black coffee with just a splash of milk, he never forgot. Customers adored him, and it wasn't just because of his flawless recall. Kyle's got this energy, you know, one of the regulars once told Joanna. Like, no matter what, he's just present. But there were things about Kyle that most people didn't notice, things Joanna only picked up over time. The way his smile faltered slightly when he thought no one was looking, or the stiffness in his posture after long hours behind the counter. And then there was the one thing nobody could explain. Each morning, Joanna had her usual encounter with him, and yet, just hours later, she'd seen him again. Not at Dunkin', but somewhere entirely different. The first time, she brushed it off. Coincidences happen, right? But the second time, and the third, it gnawed at her. Where did Kyle go after the morning rush? And why did she always spot him, far away from Dunkin', with the same tired smile, the same unwavering energy? It wasn't until one night, much later, that Joanna uncovered the unsettling truth. Belmont was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone, or at least that's what people liked to believe. Nestled in the rolling hills of New Hampshire, it was a place of crisp autumn mornings, snow-blanketed streets in winter, and lazy summer afternoons. But even in small towns, secrets have a way of slipping through the cracks. At Dunkin' Donuts, the morning crowd was like clockwork. Business professionals grabbing their caffeine fix, construction workers starting their day, and the occasional sleepy student clutching a donut in one hand and a textbook in the other. Joanna was just another face in the morning rush, a cog in the machine of Belmont's daily rhythm. The route from Dunkin' to her office was a familiar one, a winding road past frosted shop windows, old brick houses, and the looming shadow of the big Apple convenience store. Joanna barely glanced at it most days. It was just another gas station after all. But something about that place nagged at her now. It wasn't the flickering neon sign or the scent of stale gasoline that lingered in the air. It was the fact that once again Kyle was there, working, smiling, as if he hadn't just spent hours behind the counter at Dunkin'. Winter was creeping in, and the air was biting. Yet there he was, his red hair unmistakable even in the dim glow of the station lights. Joanna couldn't ignore it anymore. It happened on a particularly cold morning. Joanna had just picked up her coffee when, through the windshield of her car, she spotted him. Walking. Kyle. It was a fleeting glimpse, a blur of red hair and familiar tattoos, his jacket pulled tight against the chill. He wasn't driving. He wasn't even on a bike. He was just walking. Something about the way he trudged along the roadside, head down against the wind, unsettled her. Why was he walking so far? And where was he going? A twinge of unease settled in her chest. But she had a meeting to get to, emails to send, and deadlines to meet. She didn't stop. Later that day, though, the sight haunted her. She found herself searching the streets, scanning for that unmistakable red hair. And when she did see him again, asterisk late at night, behind the counter at Big Apple, asterisk the pieces started to fall into place. Kyle wasn't just hardworking. He was exhausted. And Joanna was about to find out why. That night, Joanna found herself back at Big Apple, her fingers tapping restlessly against the steering wheel. She wasn't sure why she was there. Curiosity, concern, or maybe something deeper that she couldn't quite put into words. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she stepped inside, the familiar scent of gasoline and convenience store hot dogs filling the air. And there he was, Kyle, standing behind the counter, wearing the same smile he wore at Dunkin Donuts. Except this time, it felt different. Forced, perhaps. Fatigued. There were dark shadows beneath his eyes, and his movements, though still efficient, lacked their usual effortless charm. Joanna couldn't hide her surprise. "Kyle, what are you doing here?" He looked up, slightly startled but still composed. "Hey, Joanna, I work here too, just covering the night shift." He said it with such nonchalance, as if juggling two full-time jobs was the most natural thing in the world. "But weren't you at Dunkin' this morning?" Kyle chuckled, running a hand through his unruly red hair. "Yo, gotta make ends meet, you know. My shift here ends at 2 a.m. Joanna stared at him, speechless. 2 a.m. That meant he had mere hours before he had to be back at Dunkin' by morning. The realization hit her like a truck. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Almost a year now," he shrugged, trying to make it sound like no big deal. "It's tough, but I have to do it." Joanna felt a lump in her throat. She'd always thought of Kyle as the cheerful, carefree guy behind the counter. But now, she saw him in a completely different light. He wasn't just a barista. He was a survivor. Kyle's life was a relentless cycle of exhaustion and perseverance. His day began at 4 a.m., before the town of Belmont had even stirred. In the dim morning light, he'd lace up his worn-out sneakers, pull on the same hoodie he'd been wearing for years, and start the long trek to Dunkin' Donuts. By 5:30 a.m., he'd be behind the counter, greeting sleepy customers with that signature smile. No one knew that he had already walked 8 miles just to get there. They only saw the energetic guy who could remember their orders by heart. For the next 8 hours, Kyle kept the coffee flowing, dealing with the morning rush, cleaning spills, and handling impatient customers. No one suspected the dull ache in his legs or the exhaustion creeping into his bones. At 2 p.m., when most people would head home to unwind, Kyle did something different. He tightened his backpack straps and set off again, another grueling 8-mile walk to the Big Apple convenience store. The thought of public transportation? Out of the question. It was too expensive, and every penny he saved mattered. By the time he arrived, the sun was already setting, and his second shift would begin, stocking shelves, mopping floors, and serving late-night customers until 2 a.m. And then the walk home, alone, in the dark. Kyle did this every single day. No breaks, no time to breathe, no time to live. But why? One night, as Joanna stood outside the Big Apple watching Kyle lock up, she finally asked him, "Why do you do this to yourself?" He leaned against the counter, sighing deeply. "I have a family now, a son, bills to pay. I want to give them a better life, something I never had growing up." His words carried a weight that made Joanna's heart ache. She could see it in his tired eyes, the silent sacrifices, the quiet desperation. And yet, through it all, Kyle never complained. He simply kept going, because what other choice did he have? But how long could he keep this up before it broke him? Driving home that night, Joanna couldn't get Kyle out of her mind. His worn-out sneakers, his hollow smile, the way he spoke about his family with so much hope, yet so much exhaustion. She had seen struggle before. She had faced her own share of hardships, but there was something about Kyle's story that felt different. It felt personal. Memories of her own struggles flashed through her mind. There was a time when she, too, had worked 2 jobs, barely scraping by. She knew what it felt like to be trapped in the endless cycle of work and survival, and she knew how exhausting it was to always be on the edge. Joanna tossed and turned that night, her mind racing. Could she really make a difference? Was it her place to intervene? The next morning, as she sat with her iced coffee in hand, scrolling mindlessly through her phone, an idea struck her. What if she shared Kyle's story? She hesitated, her finger hovering over the post button. Would he be embarrassed? Would people even care? But then she thought of his weary smile, and she hit share. The post read, "There's a guy I see every morning at Dunkin Donuts. He's one of the hardest working people I know. But what you don't know is he works 2 full-time jobs. He walks miles every day, and he does it all with a smile. Let's help him." Little did she know, that post was about to change everything. At first, Joanna's post received a few casual likes and supportive comments from friends. But then, something incredible happened. The story spread like wildfire. People shared it, commented, and tagged their friends. Within hours, dozens of people were asking how they could help. Some were shocked. He walks how many miles a day? Others felt compelled to take action. Messages flooded Joanna's inbox. People offering rides, donations, even potential job opportunities. And then the big one. A local car dealership reached out. "Hey, Joanna, we saw your post. We want to help." Joanna's heart pounded in her chest as she read the message. Could this really happen? Could Kyle's life change overnight? She had no idea, but she was determined to find out. Joanna's post was like a spark in dry timber. It spread faster than she could have imagined. Within hours, the comments and shares skyrocketed. Strangers, friends, and even people from neighboring towns flooded her inbox. "This guy deserves a break. I see him every morning, always smiling. How can I help?" People were moved not just by Kyle's relentless work ethic, but by his unwavering positivity despite the hardships he faced. Soon, local businesses caught wind of the story, and it didn't take long for a surprising message to land in Joanna's inbox. A local car dealership wanted to help. "Hi, Joanna," the message read. "We've seen Kyle around town and admire his dedication. We'd like to offer him a reliable vehicle, free of charge. Let's make sure he never has to walk those 16 miles again." Joanna read the message twice, then 3 times, her hands trembling with excitement. She could hardly believe it. Could it really be this simple? Could one Facebook post truly change Kyle's life? But the support didn't stop there. Several nonprofit organizations reached out, offering everything from financial counseling to job placement services. One local restaurant even extended an offer for Kyle to work fewer hours, but with better pay and benefits. Joanna could feel the tide turning. What started as a simple social media post had turned into a full-blown movement. People were rallying behind Kyle, determined to give him the break he so desperately needed. And the best part? He had no idea what was coming. The day of the surprise was set. Joanna worked with the car dealership and a few of Kyle's coworkers to make it happen. They planned to present the car during his lunch break at Dunkin Donuts, the place where it all began. As Kyle clocked out and stepped outside, wiping his hands on his apron, he was met with a sight that left him speechless. There, in the parking lot, stood Joanna and a crowd of familiar faces, customers, friends, and even the dealership team. A sleek 2005 Honda Accord, freshly washed and gleaming under the afternoon sun, sat proudly in the center. Kyle's eyes widened in disbelief. "What's going on?" he muttered, taking hesitant steps forward. The owner of the dealership stepped up, keys in hand. "Kyle, we've heard about how hard you've been working, and we just wanted to make things a little easier for you. This car is yours, free and clear." Silence. For the first time, Kyle was at a loss for words. His hands trembled as he reached out, touching the cool metal of the car's hood. His throat tightened and tears brimmed in his eyes. I don't know what to say," he stammered, looking at Joanna in disbelief. I don't deserve this." Joanna smiled, her own eyes misty. "You do, Kyle. You really do." As the crowd cheered and clapped, Kyle finally let the tears fall. overwhelmed by the sheer generosity of his community. His co-workers patted him on the back, grinning from ear to ear. "No more walking 16 miles, man," one of them teased. "And hey, you can finally get some sleep." In that moment, everything changed. For the first time in a long time, Kyle didn't feel alone. With the car now in his possession, Kyle's life took a turn for the better almost immediately. No longer did he have to leave home at the crack of dawn to walk miles in the freezing cold. He arrived at work on time, refreshed, and more energized than ever. His manager at Dunkin Donuts noticed the change almost instantly. Kyle wasn't dragging his feet anymore, and his once tired smile was now filled with genuine warmth. Soon, opportunities began knocking at his door. The car allowed him to apply for better-paying jobs in nearby cities, jobs he previously couldn't consider because of the lack of transportation. And within weeks, he landed a position at a logistics company, offering not only higher pay, but also a healthier work-life balance. His family noticed the difference too. He had more time to spend with his young son, and for the first time, he felt like he was providing in a way he never thought possible. The simple gift of a car had done more than provide transportation. It had given him hope, dignity, and the chance at a better future. As Joanna sat in her car a few weeks later, scrolling through the countless messages and updates from Kyle's journey, she couldn't help but smile. She had started out as just another customer grabbing her morning coffee, never imagining that something as small as paying attention to someone's struggle could lead to such a profound impact. In an interview with a local news station, Joanna shared her thoughts. "I think we get so caught up in our own lives that we forget to look around. But kindness is powerful. You never know how much it can change someone's life until you take that first step." People across Belmont were inspired. They began noticing others in their community who needed help. Single parents juggling multiple jobs, elderly neighbors struggling with errands, and young people striving for a better life. Joanna's story became a catalyst for a larger movement of kindness, reminding everyone that sometimes all it takes is one person to make a difference. Kyle's journey is a testament to one undeniable truth: hard work is never in vain. For months, maybe even years, he pushed himself beyond exhaustion, walking miles in the freezing cold, juggling 2 full-time jobs, all while carrying the weight of responsibility for his family. He never once complained. He never once asked for a break. His relentless determination spoke louder than words, proving that when life throws challenges at you, resilience is the greatest tool one can possess. But Kyle's story isn't just about working hard. It's about how consistent effort, no matter how small, can accumulate into life-changing results. Whether it's waking up an hour earlier, pushing through fatigue, or showing up when no one else will, those seemingly insignificant efforts eventually create opportunities that can redefine a person's life. And in the end, his perseverance didn't go unnoticed. It took just one person, Joanna, to recognize his struggle and share it with the world. What followed was proof that even the strongest individuals sometimes need a little help to break through the barriers life places before them. Kyle's journey reminds us that no matter how difficult the road, persistence and dedication will always pave the way for something greater. Your effort counts, your struggles matter, and your journey is worth it. At the heart of Kyle's story lies a simple yet powerful lesson. Kindness has the power to change lives. Joanna didn't have to stop. She didn't have to share his story. But she did, and that small act of kindness rippled outward in ways she never imagined. What started as a simple social media post turned into a movement, with strangers coming together to uplift someone who needed it most. We often underestimate the impact of small gestures. A warm smile, a kind word, or even just acknowledging someone's presence. Kyle's story reminds us that everyone is fighting battles we cannot see, and sometimes all it takes is a moment of compassion to make a difference. It's easy to get caught up in our daily lives and overlook the struggles of those around us. But this story shows us the power of human connection, how communities can unite to create real change when kindness is at the forefront. No act of kindness is ever too small, and its effects can reach further than we can ever imagine. Through Kyle and Joanna, we learn that kindness is not just about grand gestures. It's about being present, paying attention, and taking action when we see someone in need. In a world that can sometimes feel cold and indifferent, kindness is the warmth that keeps humanity alive. As you read this story, take a moment to reflect. Who around you might be struggling in silence? Kyle's story isn't unique. There are countless individuals working tirelessly, facing daily struggles that go unnoticed. They could be your barista, your delivery driver, your neighbor, or even a colleague sitting right next to you. We often assume that if someone smiles, they must be okay. But the truth is, many people hide their hardships behind a mask of resilience. So here's your challenge. Pay attention. Look closer. Act with kindness. Next time you're grabbing your morning coffee, take a moment to talk to the person behind the counter. If you see someone walking long distances regularly, consider offering them a ride. Share inspiring stories, because you never know who might be in need of encouragement or support.